How's it going, guys? So we just wrapped up our first anatomy practical exam in med school, and I wanted to make this video to kind of reflect on it and what I think about for things that I was doing that was helpful for it and things that we're doing that were not helpful for it, for how I'm preparing, in case you're in the same boat or you're wondering what it's like. To be honest, I was really stressed out and anxious leading up to this thing because there is a ton of stuff that they can ask you. Like, every single muscle has a nerve, it has an action, it has an attachment point, it has multiple attachment points, it can have multiple heads. There can be very important arteries that are near a given muscle. And so it's like you might learn or see like a picture of some muscle, but on the anatomy practical exam, there's just gonna be a pin in this muscle, and that's not even the question. It's not what muscle is this, it is what's innervating this muscle, where is this muscle attaching to. It's not just, oh, I know that. Like, if you had complete anatomy in front of you and you were able to just say, I know that's the deltoid, it's like, congratulations, but what's innervating that deltoid? So it's like you gotta get to like a second level depth or a third level depth sometime with like where are the multiple attachment sites of this particular muscle, and what is the action of this muscle? Like, is this extension, abduction, flexion, pronation, supination? Like, there's a ton of different actions that you need to be able to also think about. And so it's really tough to commit so much stuff to memory and to kind of stay calm, I think, leading up to the exam, because I think, speaking for myself, like, my brain will kind of start second guessing myself, being like, are you really sure that's the deltoid and not the supraspinatus or the infraspinatus? And like, are you really sure that the axillary nerve is what innervates the deltoid? And it's like, I'll fact check myself and I'll be like, I was right, but it's like, I just have all this kind of second guessing stuff. And I think that's something that only resolves with experience and from just seeing it so many times that, you're not asking these questions and doubting yourself. Like, the whole point of these things is to beat into your brain the importance of landmarks and knowing orientation very quickly. And so it's going to be a hybrid model for me, at least, of, it's not just congratulations, you were able to have a bunch of pictures in an Anki deck and able to identify what muscle a pin is in. It's also being there in lab, looking at 30 different cadavers, seeing how many different orientations you can have. And so it's like making sure you can still identify that same muscle on a different arm or a different cadaver on a different orientation, like anterior or posterior, supinated or pronated. Like, there's just all these different things. You just got to keep seeing this thing from many angles before it finally begins to register, and you can be more confident in your statement that this is the deltoid or this is the brachial radialis, or stuff like that. And so it really just comes with a bunch of practice and more practice. And the instructor, one of them said, like, the best predictor of student success on anatomy practical exams is how much time have they spent in lab after hours looking at all this stuff. And so there's no secret other than that. Like, you just got to put in the time, and you got to keep coming in and looking at different things from different angles, and eventually some of it will begin to stick, and you're going to be like, I know this is for sure the brachial radialis because I've seen it so many different times. It has to be this because I can see these landmarks. Like, I know that this is the tendon of the biceps, I know that this is the pronator quadratus, I know, like, that that's the palmaris or palmar aponeurosis. Like, you just start to see these things, that they are where they are in relation to another thing, and you just got to keep seeing it again and again and again. And as frustrating and stressful as it has been, I think it is helping to actually, like, make me a better anatomist and hopefully a physician someday too, because when someone says, oh, it hurts right here, you're gonna have all these landmarks. You're gonna be like, well, this is your acromion process, and that's your clavicle, and then you've got your coracoid process, and you've got your trapezius up here, and then you've got supraspinatus just below it, and they've got a infraspinatus a little bit lower to that, and then you've got your levator scapulae running off the superior angle of the scapula. Like, you just know all these things and you remember them, and you just keep on remembering that the dorsal scapular nerve is the thing that's going through that levator scapulae, and then also all these other muscles in your back. And it's just like you keep hitting this stuff into your head, and it's not enjoyable, but you just keep doing it and eventually it begins to stick. And so, that's where it is. The actual exam itself is literally only 30 questions about, and so like there's 30 minutes, and to me, I just reflect on like how much time I spent preparing for these 30 minutes, and I'm like, oh my God, over an hour per minute that you're in that room, looking at this stuff, and it's frustrating to also, I know I missed a few, just being like, I spent a lot of time looking at the suboccipital triangle and I thought I knew what I needed to know. And then they asked a curveball and I'm like, I didn't exactly know the attachment site of that particular muscle or something. And so, there are a few of those types of questions. I honestly don't know how I did. I just did my best. Hopefully it passes. But yeah, anatomy is definitely the hardest subject I have in school right now. And, I'm just doing my best and I hope I pass. And in terms of, if I could give advice to someone, like myself yesterday or the day before I walked into this exam, and I was doing this, and so I'm just going to reiterate it to myself and to others, is make one-pagers. So basically summarize all of the data that you're expected to know into just one page. And so in this case, on this one page, there's one column for the name of the muscle. There's another column for the nerve that goes into that muscle. There's another column for the insertion, which is a fancy way of saying like, where does it attach? So it's like, the biceps are going to attach onto the radial tuberosity, and then they're also going to attach onto that scapula. They run through the lateral, or the long head of the biceps runs through the intertubercular groove on the humerus. So you just keep hearing these things and committing it to memory, and you just keep talking about it with other people and drawing it out. I tried drawing a lot of stuff out because, it's just, think about it from another angle, like visually, just draw it. Like, can you draw it from memory? Like the brachial plexus, can you draw that from memory? It's just a ton of memorizing stuff and not just the information of, the humerus is this bone right here. It's got, a bunch of other muscles attached to it, or like, just some factoid, like, that the deltoid is innervated by the axillary nerve. It's also like really drawing out the deltoid and thinking about, in 3D space, like on the left side of the body versus the right side of the body, like where's that axial nerve coming from off the brachial plexus, off that posterior cord? Like you gotta like think about it like that, just, and then, can you draw it out? Like if you can do that, you're in good shape, because when you walk up to a cadaver on the table and there's just a pin in this nerve, and they're gonna ask you like, what's this nerve do? What spinal level does it lead up to? What cords does it come off of? Like these types of questions, you better know the answer to, and the only way you do that is from spending a bunch of time doing it. So, I will say another thing that's a little bit frustrating, because of COVID, like we're wearing N95 masks, so it's just tough to breathe in them. And you only have 1 minute at each station. So you literally just get a sheet of paper that says 1 through 30, and then you write in a little answer with a pencil that they give you. So they literally give you the paper and the pencil and a checkboard, what do they call those things? And that's it. Get your 30 minutes, you turn it in, you walk out, and that's the anatomy practical. And you either knew the structures or you didn't. And hopefully over time you gain and build a confidence with your ability to identify structures in the body just from learning and remembering all these different landmarks, but also remembering, like when I see a deltoid, I'm thinking axillary nerve, or when I see, pectoralis major, I'm thinking medial and lateral pectoralis nerves. And it's just like, you just got to keep thinking of these things, beating them into your memory. And so it's just like the amount of mental resources I feel like have gone into just anatomy for me have been insane. And then on top of that, you've got all these other classes that just make it even more insane. But I will say this too, I'm personally not a fan of so we have, I think, over 200 students, medical students who are like you know, we're all sharing this anatomy lab. So it's like the cadavers are the real cadavers that we've all been working with all year. So it's like you get to walk around and look at these people, and you're literally working on the same cadaver that'll have a pin in it. And so, but what I was going to say was like, you know, doing a good job with dissections is important because it will help you and other people as they're coming through to identify something. If you did a terrible job and you like cut through a muscle, or you like, you know, the scalpel is, I think, one of the worst enemies of a lot of kids. But, you know, if you butcher these cadavers, like they are still going to be used for the exams, and it's just going to be really tough to make it out and to be like, I think that's rectus capitis posterior major, but I don't know because it's really mushy in there. Or, you know, just things like that. It's just like there's so many things that it's like people need to be very respectful and considerate and make sure they've done a good dissection, so that the instructors can actually pin structures and make it identifiable. And then the final thing I'll say is like, really not a fan of being around people during or after or before an exam, because like the other classes are like walking out or walking in, and they're just gonna be like, you know, that was so easy or that was so hard. Like, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, just, I'd say like for me, the thing that really kept me calm walking into it was just like, you know, I took this one pager, went through it. I made Anki cards for this. I had some pictures on each card so that like at least I had a little visual tool to remember, like, okay, you know, I know the supinator muscle is going to be deep in that forearm, and I know it's going to supinate the arm, obviously, but like just, you know, those little Anki decks, and then just like, you know, before a test, like I'm just trying to like zone out all the other crap, all whatever anyone else is saying, just like, you know, just remind myself like I've prepared for this thing. You know, I've got these resources, I'm able to remember these things right now when I need to, and just make sure you're, you know, well fed, hydrated. You know, you want pee is, I mean, in my case, whatever, you know, just, I don't have to worry about peeing, you know, just none of that stuff. Yeah, so that's kind of the advice slash reflection that I would give on the first anatomy practical exam that I did in medical school as of today. So I hope this is helpful or interesting. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I hope everyone's doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will talk to you guys next time.